The New Orleans trunk murders, a forgotten chapter of the city's lively history, involved in secret streetcar flirtations, severed fingers, and the possible emergence of a sausage ghost. This is Hold My Sweet Tea. I'm Holly.
And I'm Pearl. And I have an apology to make to the world in case I confused anyone.
What happened?
So we recorded the Sausage Ghost before we recorded the Thomas House Hotel stuff.
Yeah.
So stuff got like little flippy floppied. So if you hear us talking about how we're going to Natchez on the Sausage Ghost, but we said in the previous episode that we already went, you're not crazy. That's our bad.
So sorry.
Things got a little, flippy floppied after Vegas. So had to play catch up, and some things got recorded in different orders than normal. So it happens.
It does.
You watch those shows. Like I'm guilty of watching some DIY crap, and there's like these people having like several babies, and the woman's like pregnant today, and then the next episode she's not pregnant because they recorded that one a long time ago.
It was pre-recorded.
And so that was us. That was us this time.
Yep, we sure did, because we thought we were like down an episode, so I recorded mine, and then we were like, oh wait, no we're not. We were down a Thursday episode, so then we recorded Pearl's episode. So
we got
just
confused.
Talked about some stuff that happened in the future.
Yeah, it's fine. We're time travelers.
That's
you guys just didn't even know.
That's right. Besides that,
also neither one of us is pregnant.
Exactly. No.
So no worries on that.
No.
There will never be confusion about that. It's impossible.
Never. Never ever.
Never ever.
Yeah, so, it happens, and we both work, the full-time job, so our brains are wrapped around that as well, and
my pretend adults are full-time job.
Yeah.
So I have two full-time jobs.
I only have one pretend adult, and he could be a full-time job, too.
I don't know. I feel like yours is easier than mine these days.
Yeah, maybe. Coming up on summer, we may be a little loopy and crazy, but the job that we both do, summer is our busy season.
Mm-hmm.
So May through August is a little bit crazy here.
It's a lot of bit crazy.
And we might get a little stressed out, but we will have these episodes out.
Yeah.
And we will make sure everybody has, stuff to listen to.
Hopefully we stay funny.
Yeah. We'll be like, I'm Holly.
Right.
I'll get narcoleptic. Just fall asleep.
Pearl, it's your turn.
It's your turn. Are you going to banter with me? No? Okay. Pearl's going to take a nap while I do this. So, are we ready to get into today's, guess, not continuation of the Sausage Ghost, but, what I promised y'all, that I was staying in New Orleans, and we're gonna go into a story that is linked to the Sausage Ghost.
The Sausage Ghost.
Sausage links.
Formerly known as the Wacky Willie.
The Wacky Willie.
And the Sausage Factory.
Yeah. Oh my God. Did he have Oompa Loompas?
I'm not real sure what his wife looked like, but maybe.
He had little bratwurst. That's what it was.
He did not get to give out any golden tickets, only
No.
golden rings.
You. That's gross.
It is gross.
But I do want to put a content warning on this episode. It does contain detailed and graphic depictions of a violent crime that may not be suitable for everyone. So listener discretion is advised. A grim Times-Picayune article from October 28th, 1927 is filed into a binder at the Williams Research Center of New Orleans, headlined, Bodies Found in Trunks. It tells the ghastly end of Teresa and Leonide Moiti. In the 1920s, the French Quarter was principally a working-class neighborhood. This was due to decreasing property values and proximity to employment opportunities. This, unfortunately, was accompanied by a string of, crimes and other things going on in the French Quarter. And we touched on a little on Storyville and all that stuff. So there was a lot going on. Many of the wealthier residents at that time had moved to the garden suburbs along Esplanade Avenue, St. Charles Avenue, and further uptown to escape the urban nuances such as warehouses and sugar refineries and crime. So they didn't want to have anything to do with it, so they moved uptown.
They sashayed by.
Sashay by. I should have put, there is a house in New Orleans.
Yeah.
In this episode, but we're just going to move on with it. So the victims of the horrific trunk murder crimes, Teresa and Leonide, both in their early 20s, had met and married brothers Henry and Joseph Moiti while living in New Iberia, Louisiana. Teresa and Henry eventually had 3 children together, and Leonide and Joseph had 2 children. In 1927, they thought it would be a good idea to move down to New Orleans, to the French Quarter, and seek some job opportunities down there. Teresa and Leonide shared a crowded existence with their husbands and 5 small children in the second-floor rooms of 715 Ursuline Avenue.
Ooh.
So
They wasn't
5 kids, 4 adults.
Did they have chickens and pigs inside too?
No, I don't think so. But back then, these are like full residences,
Right.
and everything. But back then, there was like maybe some sort of store or something on the bottom, or an office, and then up on the top floors, each one go up, it would be an apartment.
Right.
So they were just small.
They were just like all broken it up into smaller units.
Right. So they had, a unit there. So 715 Ursuline Avenue. And then you've got what I discussed last week, the sausage guy
Next
was
door.
725. So there's some similarities with the stories and everything. And
the HMs.
The HM that Pearl had pointed out last week. So, you kind of follow along a little bit. But this was an actual real story.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is where things kind of cross a line a little bit with each other. For their part, Henry and Joseph were odd jobs men. They were described by sources as shiftless and perpetually short on funds needed to support their families. They were prone to drinking and fighting with their wives nightly.
Oh, yeah, because drinking's going to pay the bills.
Right. Drinking pays the bills. So, they would work an odd job here, an odd job there, and they just weren't paying the bills because they wouldn't, get off their behind and support their families and all their children.
Good thing they didn't have video games back then.
Oh, my God. Right? I can afford this video game, but we ain't having food this week.
Sorry, kids.
Oops. So Teresa and Leonide also worked. So they would come in and express their frustrations of having to manage the children while taking on sewing jobs to bring in necessary cash. This is when the brothers started hearing whispers of their wives' infidelity with men. Well, I mean,
They should have. They should have found some dude who wanted to take care of their kids.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you're not taking care of me and the kids, because back then the man
was supposed to
take care of,
Much harder for a woman to make an actual living back then, for sure.
Absolutely, because, a lot of people wouldn't hire women unless it was prostitution or some seedy thing. So
right.
Men worked, and they had shipyards down there. They had warehouses, all kinds of stuff. They could have gotten tons of jobs. So one night after a heated argument, Leonide told Joseph she wanted to separate. Joseph took his 2 children and moved out. He was like...
He got some money to move? What the hell?
He was like, I'm going to take these kids because you're neglecting them and you're cheating on me.
She's neglecting them and she's the only one making money.
Right.
Okay.
Cool. So he sent the children to live with his parents in New Iberia. So it's not like he took them and
so he didn't take them to take care of them. I got you.
But he's like, you know what? I want to bounce, and I'm going to send the kids to my parents, and they can raise them. So Leonide continued to live with Henry and Teresa, and Henry, he didn't like it because Leonide was influencing his wife, which was her sister. But I'm like, still, he said that she was like saying, oh, well, you should go do this and you should go do that. And your husband's not doing anything.
The husbands, are they related to one another?
Yes. The husbands are brothers and the wives are sisters.
Oh, so they,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they're, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Their kids are cousins on both sides of that family
tree.
Got it.
It's a narrow branch. But yeah, so they were living in New Iberia, the brothers were, and they met these sisters. And married them. Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm all caught up now.
Okay. So on Wednesday, October 26th, things had come to a head in the Moiti household when Teresa and Leonide revealed their plans to move out. It is said that Teresa allegedly flaunted a $10 bill in Henry's face and bragged that she could make more money in an hour as a prostitute than he could in a week.
Oh, well.
I'm like, girl.
Well, there we are, the only profession women were allowed to have.
There you go. The only profitable profession.
Right, the only one you could actually make a living off of.
Yes.
Or at least afford your disease.
Right. If that's how much he was making in a week and she made that an hour,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So later that day, Henry returned home to find Teresa and Leonide packing their belongings into 2 large trunks. He became, enraged. He was like...
I'm sure.
What the hell? Where are you going? So he began drinking because, that's the only thing you should do. I'm going to get drunk.
That's his solution for everything.
Right.
Oh, let me get a drink.
You're moving out and you're taking my kids. I'm going to drink.
Sweet.
But just remember this drinking part later on. It might be late. We might have to split this in 2 parts. So we'll see as time goes on. But keep this in mind later on because you're going to be like, what the actual... Yeah.
Bleep.
So... So, like I said, he had begun drinking, only interrupting his bender to go purchase a cane knife. So, if you've ever seen a sugar cane knife, they're like a machete. So, when night fell over the quarter, the Moiti women and children retired to their beds, while Henry, drunk and restless, paced and contemplated the hidden cane knife because he went and bought it and he hid it. And he's just pacing the floors and he's drinking and he's like thinking about this knife.
And becoming more and more angry.
And he's like, my sister-in-law is influencing my wife and now they're packing their stuff and they're going to leave. And these thoughts are going through his head, and he's still drinking. He's still, pounding down the liquor. So later on, he admits that he considered killing himself and the children, which goes back to, why take your kids out?
Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
Right.
But he changed his mind when he imagined his wife running around with multiple men. This included a man named Joe Caruso. Now, Joe Caruso was a married man who operated a real estate office from the ground floor of 715.
So they're in the same building.
Ursuline, yeah.
Okay.
He had fixated on Teresa from the time the Moitis had moved in. Teresa and Caruso had become very involved.
Is that where she got that $10 bill?
Maybe. I don't know. Either that or she had another side piece. I don't know. So they took friendly excursions on streetcars, carried out brazen flirtation under Henry's nose, stealing little hugs and, kisses and little, touchy-touchies and passing notes in the darker corners of 715 Ursuline. Like, here's a note.
I mean,
because they didn't text back then, so that was a note.
Here's my thing, though. It's like, if you're doing all that, and
right under your husband's nose,
yeah, right there. Like, what you being so secretive about?
Right.
You guys went out in public and gotten. No.
Yeah.
Come on.
But I guess she finally got to the point where she was like, okay, we're leaving. I'm going to leave you. We're packing our stuff. We're leaving in the morning.
Okay.
So, as Henry stood over the sleeping form of Teresa, studying the angles of the knife, thinking about all her indiscretions and how she neglected their children, apparently, it comes up a couple of times. So apparently, while she was out doing all this, that the kids were being neglected. They weren't being.
Of course, they're being neglected because she's not home,
right?
Because she's out.
But he's home drinking.
Yeah, he's not neglecting
he shouldn't
them at all.
Have to watch his own kids.
No, that's not a man's job.
Not at all. So he suddenly found himself swinging the cane knife like a man possessed.
Ooh.
Now, in New Orleans, in the 1920s, even people of modest means could afford domestic assistance to help around the home. So they would, and this person that they had hired, she lived in the same building as them. So she would, for a few cents or whatever, she would come in and tidy up the apartment. And I'm like, you come in and clean after 5 kids and 4 adults.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Okay.
Right. So when their housekeeper, Nettie Compass, arrived to clean the Moiti's apartment on the morning of October 27th, which, by the way, is my kid's birthday, I'm like, oh, okay. 1927, a scene of bloody disarray greeted her.
Poor Nettie.
I know. She had barely set a foot inside before encountering traces of blood all over the floor.
She's like, bro, I didn't bring enough rags.
I didn't bring enough rags for this. I ain't getting down on that floor scrubbing this mess up. There ain't no way.
Y'all too much.
Yeah. What'd y'all do last night?
This is going to be extra. I'm going to need help.
There's blood on the dance floor. I want to sing that in every episode.
There's always something on the dance floor.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
So a frantic Nettie started screaming for help. She was soon joined by 2 insurance men who were conveniently nearby, which there was an insurance company at the bottom of the building, so I guess so.
Yeah.
And they had notified the police, and then they tipped off a local reporter named George William Healy. Healy described their discovery. So when he got there, he said, "We found red stains on the floor and saw a large trunk in a bedroom partially open. When I pulled up the trunk lid, a woman's body, arms, and legs severed from the torso were exposed. Healy borrowed a neighbor's telephone and requested a second reporter because he wanted to make sure that everything was recorded correctly and in the situation, suggesting that it might be appropriate to alert the coroner. You think?
Oh, no.
Right?
There's pretty much no way that person is alive.
Right.
So, yeah.
She's in pieces. So when the coroner and Healy's female colleague, Gwen, arrived, she saw several objects over on one of the beds.
Wait, there's a female reporter?
I know. I was
oh
like,
my gosh.
Look at you, girl.
Go
You know, the
ahead.
prostitute. So Gwen went over to see what was on the bed, and she held up these objects, and she's like, look, lady fingers. And I laughed at that. I was like, why would you say that?
Yeah, why would you say that?
She held up 4 fingers that had been cut off of a woman's hand. After placing the fingers back on the bed, Gwen moved into a second bedroom.
It's like, why'd you touch them?
Right. But back then, forensics weren't a thing. So they were just like,
don't touch it.
Right.
Ew.
And they didn't have gloves back then either.
Right.
Did she take out her hanky and pick them up?
I'm surprised she's, it was way too early for junk in the trunk.
Right.
Okay.
So she moved her way into the second bedroom and found a second trunk. And she opened it. Packed the same way was the expertly butchered corpse of the second woman. Resting on the torso was a bloodied cane knife. So, like I said before, those are the machete type ones.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have a little upturned hook on the end
right,
of it.
They
so
curve just a little
when
bit.
they're cutting the sugar cane, it grabs it and cuts it. So can you imagine this?
Just slicing into somebody, hooking and
right.
Oh.
And those are about they're about a foot long or more.
Yeah,
so they're
they're big.
Yeah, they're big. He didn't go for a small knife. He was like,
he's doing some damage.
Yeah, we're gonna slash and gash and do some damage. So the lady fingers were discovered to have belonged to Teresa Moiti, whose missing wedding ring, and remember I said in the previous one that it was found in a weird way, was later retrieved from a gaping gash in her back from the cane knife. So he took it and shoved her wedding ring in this gash in her back.
Wow.
Yeah. A gold bracelet still hung delicately from the wrist of a severed arm. Clumps of hair lay on the floor, surrounded in pools of blood. So he was
certainly, yeah,
scalping.
He was going at it,
right? That's what I was
full rage,
man. Yeah. He let that rage and alcohol brew, and then he went at it.
Yeah.
The mattresses were soaked, as well as the bathroom, with blood. It was a very gory, insane scene.
Ew.
I was the whole time thinking of a slasher movie, and I'm like, this is gross.
Yeah, in my head, I imagine blood dripping down everywhere. There's no way. I mean,
right? Because he's slashing
slinging,
and slinging,
and every time he's pulling back on that cane knife, stuff is a flying.
Blood spatter.
I say stuff because
stuff.
I don't know. There's pieces of flesh, I'm sure, stuck to it too.
Hair,
that
flesh,
hook
clothes, everything. Yeah,
it's just
flying.
gross. And I'm like, ugh. And
you
y'all
imagine?
Are just walking around in there it's cool.
Can you imagine a blood spatter expert having to walk in there and go, all right, let's see which way this went.
Right.
It's on the ceiling.
Let's see if I can tell you how this whole room is tie-dyed in blood and guts.
Dexter would have taken care of it, though. I
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
He would have assessed that scene and been like, you know what I would have done? Put plastic down.
Right. Exactly. I would have been smart about this. Made for easy cleanup.
Easy cleanup. Plastic.
And I wouldn't have stuffed them in big old trunks because those things are heavy.
Exactly.
Especially from back then.
Yeah, those are those big, solid wood, huge trunks.
Huge trunks. Heavy trunks.
Yeah.
Because
So,
all your stuff was getting moved in trunks.
right.
Whew.
And remember the night before, they were packing the trunks with their clothes and stuff. So all of their personal effects lay strewn among the gore.
Mhm.
Children's clothing, unfinished sewing projects, a woman's lace garment, silk stockings, beauty creams.
All the things.
All the things were just everywhere. So Orleans Parish coroner, Dr. George Rolling, determined that the killer had first bludgeoned the women with a lead billy club before slashing them all over, then decapitating and amputating their arms and legs with the cane knife.
So he didn't just attack them with the knife. He
knocked them out, with the billy club, and then started slashing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
he's mad.
Yeah. So amongst all of the things that they, because they went through all of their stuff and were, looking for clues and things like that, there was a manuscript they found written in Leonide's handwriting. It was hidden in a cabinet in her bedroom. So it was, like the grammatical errors were horrible because I'm sure she wasn't that educated. It's a thinly veiled autobiographical account that she had tried to publish in a popular women's magazine.
Trying to make some money.
Right. She was like, I'm going to write this and maybe they'll publish it. Though grammar's bad, but
it's okay.
It's okay.
They got editors for that, girl.
Right. You go, girl. So the Times-Picayune published portions of the story in a short article about the personal effects left behind by the women. It's believed that she wrote the story before moving from New Iberia. Her cautionary tale presented a personal letter, speaks of finding joy again after a failed marriage. Despite their poverty, the author writes that about living happily with her husband and their young children in her small hometown. Yet she concludes with an ominous warning. Now to you, reader, young girls especially, please think ahead of you and do not make the mistakes I've made, because it does not always turn out the right way. You can still be disappointed. Guess it was only my luck to be happy like this. So I warn others not to take the same risk. Which kind of confused me because I'm like,
what is she talking about?
Is she saying she's happy, but
she's made a mistake?
Made a mistake? I don't know. But there was one line, a piece of advice imparted by her father that, haunts her story. It says, be careful, for marriage is a life sentence. As reporters and police took stock of the grisly scene, there was something notably missing. Henry and Joseph Moiti.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun. So this is where I'm going to end part 1. And then we will pick back up with part 2 on the following Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go through the whole, finding of Henry and Joseph and all the other things that took place, and the tie-in with the sausage ghost, and then a little secret tale at the end, because
are we gonna find out what happened to the kids?
Yes.
I mean, I know where one set of kids are, but what about the other ones?
Yeah, we will find out about that too. So dun dun dun! I got to do a 2-parter! Yay! I was like, this one's really long.
Yeah. And I like her dad's advice probably resembles my life there.
Yeah.
But I literally, my parents both have been, well, my mom especially had been married several times.
Mm-hmm.
My dad has done a couple and has decided it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I've said since I was little, because of all these marriages and relationship hoppings that have occurred with my dad, whew, Lord, the amounts of girlfriends. And I'm going to tell you right now, some of them I was like, what are you doing?
What are you doing here?
But anyway, I digress. This is the reason I have never been married and don't ever plan to be. I am dying with the same last name I was born with.
You're like, it's not going to change.
No.
Well, it was me. I mean, I got married one time. We lasted a while. And then when we separated and everything, I was like, I will never, ever, ever, ever get married again because I don't want to go through all that again.
Yeah.
And have to have a piece of paper legally saying that I'm with this person and then have to pay a bunch of money to legally get out of it.
I think the next time, too, that somebody makes me mad, I'm going to be like, I'm going to go Henry Moiti on your ass.
Right.
And they're going to look at me like, what?
You don't know what it is. Listen to our podcast.
Right.
Yeah. This was definitely, I brought a gross one to the table today.
Yeah. I just can't get past the, look, it's ladyfingers. Why are you touching it? Why?
You know, and I read like several.
Like those could be your fingers.
Articles, and like a couple of them mentioned her saying, "Look, it's lady fingers," and I'm like, why would you say that for? But also, like,
she's a little bit twisted.
I don't know how their life in New Iberia. It doesn't go into a lot of it, but like it seemed like their life was pretty good because she said she was happy in her hometown.
Yeah,
and that's where they had their kids. But then they decided, hey, let's move to the seediest place in the world as of now, down to the French Quarter, and then moved into this apartment with all of them in it. And I guess they weren't happy. And then their husbands are drinking constantly
and not working hardly, and they're struggling and they're suffering. And
so they were like, you know what? I'm going to go find me a sugar daddy.
And then out comes the cane knife.
Right. I'm not saying what they did was right, but also like what he did was definitely not right.
Yeah, definitely not.
But we're gonna, like I said, get into the second part for next week, and it there's a lot to it, so it's juicy.
This one was pretty juicy.
Yeah, this one was pretty juicy.
It sounded like everything was full of juice.
Juice splattered everywhere.
Human juice.
And no sausages.
No sausages, yeah. Not a sausage in sight.
We hope you enjoyed that last episode because we were in a state of delirium.
Yeah, I sometimes live in that state. Yeah. So look forward to that during the summer because delirium will be my middle name. So we hope you've managed to
not throw up.
I was going to say, make it all the way through the episode without having to be like, pause. I need a minute. Get coming back. But, whatever. Our theme music was by Patty Salzetta. And, I mean, hey, if you guys have heard this story before, you want to interact before we record the next one?
Yes.
Send us a message. You can send us a message on Facebook. You can send us an email at steeped@holdmysweettea.com. That
Send
no one's using
message.
Still.
We know people are listening.
Yeah, I get like...
Be the one that sends us the message.
I get like marketing people sending me stuff like, you've already uploaded more episodes than most podcasts in this amount of time, blah, blah, blah.
Like we're pumping them out. Yeah.
I know. But like also, no, I'm not giving you my money. I'm spending enough. Thanks.
Right. But I did get a Facebook Messenger message from Casey. Thank you, Casey, for telling us that our podcast is funny and awesome and that you listen to it at night while you nurse in a lab. Do your thing.
When you said while you nurse, I was like instantly baby in my head. I'm like, that's not the kind of nursing she meant.
She's a nurse.
Why am I like this?
I don't know. But thank you, Casey. We appreciate you.
For sure. And then, of course, you can find us on all the socials. So anything you have, we are messageable. on those platforms.
And tell your friend. And you know what it costs to share one of our episodes on your Facebook page?
$0.
$0. And that's just exposure for us, and it helps get our name out there. Yes. So, you know, if y'all would, you could
and if you're telling your friend about
right.
it, text them the link.
Yes.
Don't just tell them. Text them the link.
Because Pearl tells you every episode what the links are.
Yeah.
So you should know.
Like if you were listening on Spotify and you're like, you know, your friend uses Spotify.
Right. And you know that, like,
push the
girl,
button.
You're going to love this episode.
Yeah.
It is right up your alley.
Send it. Send the link.
It.
Don't just tell them about it. Send the link.
Yep.
Because I know that there are people who are like, hey, you told me the name of your podcast. What is it again? I forgot. I know it has something to do with tea. I'm like, you know what?
Tea.
I know we were talking and I didn't have my phone in my hand at that moment, but I'm going to go ahead and send it to you. So hold on. Because it's just always better that way. Everybody forgets later.
Yep. And the share button is that little thing that looks like an alien giving a peace sign sideways. You just click that, share it wherever.
And there it goes.
Copy the link. Anything.
Yeah. For sure.
Yes. So absolutely do all those things, and we appreciate all of you. So Hold My Sweet Tea is a Drunken Bee production.
Bzz.
And just because we're dipping doesn't mean you can't keep sipping. And also stay safe out there, because I forgot to say that.
Bye.
Bye. Don't get put in any trunks.